Hello, and welcome to Strictly Speaking tonight. We have a wonderful guest with us, Lauren Kennedy Brady. Thank you so much for joining us tonight.
Thank you for having me. I'm so happy to be here.
This is a very laid back and strictly speaking type of situation. So we're just gonna talk and take a look at Lauren's life as a performer and a producer. So, Lauren, thank you so much for joining us.
It is absolutely my pleasure. Thank you.
Yes. So let's start off with what is typically seen as the hardest question. To you, what does it mean to be a professional actor?
To me, what does it mean to be a professional actor? Well, I think it means that you are making a living doing the thing that you love, which for me is obviously acting. You know, and being able to earn a living wage by doing that, So, of course, we all have our side hustles. Don't get me wrong, when you're an actor, unless you're a movie star making $20 million a picture, there's not a ton of money in the arts. You do it for passion for sure. But I definitely consider myself a professional actor. I spent 23 years in New York working on Broadway, off Broadway, national tours. So worked in London, around the country in regional theater, and was able to, pay my rent that way.
That's awesome. Thank you so much. And how did you get started down this path?
Well, I got started right here in Raleigh, North Carolina. I grew up, right near NC State, right outside of Cameron Village. I went to Broughton High School, and I started doing shows at the North Carolina Theater when I was probably 7. My first show there, I was doing their summer camps. I also did A Christmas Carol at TIP. I worked at RLT. I did Gypsy there when I was a little girl, and also did a couple shows at Meredith College. So I'm very, I worked a lot in the community theater scene in Raleigh when I was a kid. And my sister would drag me to auditions. She was older than me and she didn't want to go by herself. So she dragged me along, and I got bit by the bug big time and ended up being the one who pursued it as a career. And that was kind of it for me. Like once I was on stage, I was like, oh yeah, this is what I'm going to do.
So you started in high school, and then, where did you, once you got out of high school, where'd you go from there?
Well, so when I was in high school, I was doing show choir, and that was really fun and very sort of formed me, I would say, too. Alongside, I would work at the North Carolina Theater doing shows like I did 2 or 3 a year, and I was like in the dancing ensemble or whatever. And they always brought New York actors in, and I would just sort of like sit at their feet and listen and learn and try to sort of absorb as much as I could. And so I really think that that is what put the idea in my mind of like, oh, I want to be like that, where I travel around to other theaters around the country. They bring me in, I'm staying at the hotel, and I get to like play with all the kids and stuff. So I that really set me off on my next journey, which was to audition for BFA programs. And a couple of people I had worked with at the North Carolina Theater had gone to the University of Cincinnati College Conservatory of Music. And so I had it in my mind that that's where I was going to go. And I was focused on it. And it was the first place I auditioned. And it was the first place I got accepted. And so I was like, that's a sign. That's it. I'm going there.
Awesome. Yeah. No, as a fellow,
yes, I know.
we both started out here in Raleigh as well. So yay, I'm so glad.
I know. Yay, us.
All right. So you're at the BFA program, and then, when you were there, after you finished with Cincinnati, what was that first show that you did that you're like, okay, this is going to work out. This is going to do it.
Well, in terms of like where I felt like, oh, I'm gonna be okay making a living, or just that I loved it.
You're like, this is I'm doing it. I'm gonna be famous.
I don't know about famous, but well, certainly I left Cincinnati. It's no secret. Stay in school though, by the way. But I did, after my sophomore year of being at the Cincinnati Conservatory of Music, an agent came, and I was lucky enough to be able to sing for him. One of the few underclassmen who got to sing for him. And then like a couple months later, he sent me out for a couple auditions in New York, and I flew myself up there and went to the open call of Sunset Boulevard, which was written by Andrew Lloyd Webber, directed by Trevor Nunn. And I got it. So like that was crazy. So I at 19 years old, I moved to LA and did the world premiere of, not the world premiere, sorry, the American premiere of Sunset Boulevard with starring Glenn Close. And there, oh, well, that's Betty Buckley. She came in and did it afterwards. And oh, I love that. And that was it. Like, yeah, I played Betty Schaefer. I was the understudy of Betty Schaefer, and then I toured with it around the country after that. So I spent actually 3 years doing Sunset Boulevard. There's Glenn Close. That was, I think, at a Thanksgiving party at her house. She was so generous, so sweet. So that was kind for me. That was sort of like, oh, I'm going to do this. This is going to be my life. It's going to go okay. But of course, what you don't know is that if you get a job like that, like a really high profile, amazing gig out of school,
Mhm.
what you don't know is like, oh, it doesn't always work like this. So what happened to me, which was probably a really good thing, is that I ended up like after I left the tour of Sunset Boulevard, I didn't work for a while. You know, it's a bit of a humbling, rude awakening.
Yeah. Okay. Okay. So look at this. I was about to say, everyone, don't forget to throw those questions out there. We got our first one. So you mentioned going around to other countries for shows. What are some of the other countries you have performed in?
So, like I mentioned, I performed in London at the National Theatre. Oh, I don't think I actually said that yet. I was just thinking it in my head. I played Nellie Forbush in South Pacific at the National Theatre in London, again, directed by Trevor Nunn, who I knew from Sunset Boulevard. So it's like all about networking and
Mhm.
trust and working with people who are loyal and know you. So that was incredible. I also performed in South America in Sao Paulo. And then I also performed in Australia, Adelaide and Sydney. And I worked with Jason Robert Brown, which you and I were talking about earlier. Um, we did some tours. Like when I released an album, we did a version of Last 5 Years in Adelaide, Australia, which was really fun. We traveled together.
Cool. So when you were in Australia or the National Theater, were you? Well, let's look at Australia and South America. Actually, were you touring there, or were you set up in one space?
Well, we in Australia we did something called the Adelaide Cabaret Festival. So it was a month-long festival of shows from all over the world that came,
Mhm.
and it was really cool. It was really neat. And so we just stayed there, but we did do a couple of offshoot concerts in Sydney, just because while we were there, we just sort of picked up a couple extra gigs. So that was I was there for almost a month. That was amazing. That was like life changing. When I was in Sao Paulo, we were not touring, but I went with a group called the Broadway Divas. So it was three girls, and we were hired by producers and a show was created around these sort of three ladies. And I was one of many people they would shuffle in and out. And I got to go to do it in South America.
Awesome. So we do have one question coming in through the chat. Gary is asking, in between Sunset Boulevard and the other shows, what did you do after Sunset Boulevard to keep up your morale and drive before you got to the next show?
Yeah. It's so interesting. Just kind of going to auditions and just kind of taking the successes of, well, I didn't embarrass myself, or I got a call back and that's good, that's close. I also went back into acting class because, like I said, I left school early and I felt like, even though I felt like it was an opportunity I couldn't turn down, I still felt like, oh, I have other things to learn. So that was the most important thing I did during that hiatus, was continuing to stay creative, taking an acting class, working on scenes, honing my craft, and feeling like I was getting better, and better and better, not just sitting there being stale. So
Well, I think right now, especially, we all know about taking a hiatus and working
yeah,
goals right now.
that's so true.
All right. So you've done a lot of shows and a lot of things. I'm interested. What was your favorite role that you've had so far?
Ooh. Um,
In
Wait, say that last thing one more time.
I say so far because I hope we see you in more things.
Well, it's funny. I don't love performing the same way I once did. There was just a I don't know. I had just this incredible drive and passion to be on stage, and I couldn't wait to play any part. I thought I could do them all. But that's what you do when you're young, right? You think you can play every part. I would have to say my favorite part to date, and it wasn't even really my part. I stood by for Emily Skinner in Sideshow on Broadway, so the role of Daisy Hilton.
Mhm.
And like I said, I was not cast in the role, but I was her understudy. So I stood by, which means I wasn't in the show unless I went on for her. And I went on for her quite a bit because it was a really hard thing to sing. And so those girls got vocally fatigued, 8 shows a week. They were belting their brains out. And so like out of the 100 performances, I think I did 33. But I still don't like claim it as my own because I knew my place. I knew I was her understudy, but it was such a fun role to play. And it was such an incredible experience to be on stage with another person. Like you had this security blanket with you. And to work in tandem like that, it was like playing opposite somebody on crack. You were just like in high gear of just being so super connected to somebody on stage. And that kind of teamwork was really fun for me. And also serendipitously, I got to go on with Alice Ripley, who's an actress who I understudied on Broadway in Sunset Boulevard. So we already had a cool friendship, and then getting to go on stage with her and play with her was so fun. That's my favorite role ever. It's an amazing part.
I'm gonna grab on to what you said there. Being on stage with somebody that's high energy and working against them. You were in the last 5 years.
That's right.
Before we get into that, could you just give us a quick overview of what that show's about, and specifically the setup, because it leads into my question of what's it like being on stage by yourself?
Yeah, a lot. Um, so the last 5 years was written by Jason Robert Brown, and it was sort of a show in which he wrote because he had just written Parade, and it was a lot of people, a lot of cooks in the kitchen, so high pressure. He wanted to just write a show he could do by himself. He could write the music, he could write the lyrics, he could write the limited amount of dialogue that was in there. So there he is, Jason Robert Brown, and Norbert Butz is who I played opposite of. And it was sort of a deconstruction of a marriage, and a lot of it was pulled from his real life. And it was sort of cathartic for him to sort of go through and sort of make peace of this marriage that he had, that didn't end up working out. And so he thought it would be a really interesting storytelling device to have Kathy, who was the part that I played, go back in time. So she started at the end of the marriage and goes backwards. And Jamie, who Norbert Leo Butz played, starts at the beginning of their relationship and goes forward. And then they meet in the middle at the wedding, and then they continue on. So it was really cool in terms of the device for the audience, because you're sort of experiencing it real time and you're like, what's happening? But for an actress, it was really challenging to start at the end, like, in tears, saying goodbye, putting your ring on the table and storming out. And then at the end of the show, it's like this beautiful elation of like meeting this person who you're hopeful that might be your person. So interesting. I get chills just talking about it because I think it's so smart. But and I also had been the kind of actress who um was was sort of effervescent and light, and this was one of the first times I really got to dig in and play a role that had some real complexity. And so I learned so much about being a good actress in that show, or like how to um craft a show and create a character. And so interestingly enough, starting at the end of the relationship, what I would do is I would put myself in that place, listen to music and get myself a little bit worked up at the top of the show. And then ultimately all I had to do was play moment to moment. And in some weird way, because you were going backwards, it almost made the beginning, where she's excited about the relationship, a little bit darker than Lauren would have naturally been, because she was feeling the end at the beginning. And it kind of created this character who was a little bit cuckoo and a little bit unhappy and a sort of a self-loather. And so it made me different than I would have just naturally been if she had started at the beginning and gone forward. So it was such an interesting lesson as an actress, I thought.
Awesome. And the whole time you guys are on the stage, not interacting with each other until
Not Yeah. Well, in the version that that Daisy Prince directed, that was on Broadway, and the one that ultimately I had done before I went to New York, not Broadway, off Broadway, but there were times where I was playing Kathy in Jamie's world, and he was playing Jamie in my world, but you would only see our backs. Like the light would be on him talking to me, and you wouldn't really experience me. You'd just see the shadow of a woman's body, right? And so also that was interesting too, is to be getting that information from that actor and then turning around and being in a different part of your trajectory. So that was wild. That was really wild. And then of course, like you said, there was so many moments where you're out there by yourself, just stirring up the story.
Awesome. All right. When everyone keep those questions coming, we're gonna keep going along the performance side, and we'll jump into the producer side of the coin here shortly. So you talked about the show that was your favorite role. Is there a role or a show out there that you've always wanted to do?
Well, um, you know, I used to say they haven't written it yet. Like I wanted to be a part of a new show, and like that was my pat answer. If you had asked me a year ago, I would have said I wanted to play Donna in Mamma Mia, but I actually got to do that last year, so that was really a dream come true for me. I guess I'll say, and maybe I'm manifesting this right here and now too, is that I'd love to play Norma Desmond in Sunset Boulevard now,
Okay.
because I was 20 when I did that show, 19 and 20, and Glenn Close was 48 when we started, and I'm 47. So it's like it would be really fun for me to revisit that show as a different human, because I'm so different than what I was. So that's maybe the thing I would say I'd like to do.
Okay. All right. So let's flip that coin now. Let's talk about your role as a producer, an artistic director and producer. First off, can you tell us what does that role mean?
The producing artistic director means you sort of curate and organize anything artistic that goes on in the theater. So you're sort of overseeing the choice of shows selection, and you are very much part of the casting process, and you direct a certain amount of the shows. You choose the people that you hire as your creative team and sort of oversee always. It's sort of like being the principal of a school, so you're here and everybody's working with you and you're overseeing and making sure everybody's doing their job. What I always like to say too is that the best part of my job is just picking really smart, amazing artists. Like, to me, that's my favorite part about being an artistic director, is hiring folks that I know who are better and smarter than me and are going to help, sort of shepherd TheatreRaleigh into sort of doing its highest and best artistic work. So that's sort of what an artistic director does. And, again, I have directed and I have performed and stuff like that, and I feel like I've done a decent job with those. But I would say I'm more passionate about producing, because I'm so much more interested in other people than I am myself. And maybe that's my age. I don't know, or maybe it's just that I have something to say. Like I really want to tell stories, and I get excited about plays or musicals or writers, and I want to lift them up. I want to be like, hey, Josh, you're an incredible lighting designer, an incredible director. Please come work with me. And like, I want to give you that opportunity, or at least, um, work together, because I'll learn from you as well. And it'll help me continue to grow as a producer. So that's really my favorite part about it.
Yeah. Oh, so as you were mentioning just there, you have
Hmm.
then you direct at Theater Raleigh.
Hmm.
Rita is asking, where did you gain your experience as a director?
I mean, like, I feel like I've gone to the school of life. Like I have zero, experience. Oh, I didn't have any expertise, I guess is what I'm trying to say. Um, but so the easiest way to answer that question is just that I watched directors that I worked with, and I have emulated some that I thought were really, really smart and really knew how to talk to actors and really knew how to tell a story and make an impact on the audience. And I've also learned from directors who did not do that well. So you learn from the good and from the bad, and you just sort of like take what works for you and what doesn't. But I never had any training as a director. I've just sort of been around it, sort of like osmosis. And then, so my brother, Michael Kennedy, and my dad created what was the original Hot Summer Nights at the Kennedy in 2005, I think. And they sort of had me be their creative liaison in New York. I helped sort of cast and bring people from New York. And then somebody pulled out as a director for one of the shows, and my brother Michael asked me if I wanted to direct. And I was like, maybe. I don't know. Let me see. Will you hate me if it goes bad? And I just I learned a lot in that summer, and I really, really loved it. I really loved being able to have um, sort of the overarching creative vision, and sort of it. I don't know. It just was really satisfying to me, and like I said, I continue to learn. So I hope I'm getting better and better and better with each one.
Awesome. Thank you. We have an anonymous question asking, anonymous attendee asking, is there one quality you look for more than other qualities when you are hiring artists?
It's a great question. Well, first of all, you look for talent, obviously, and I always look for the talent that's brought into the room. So, for instance, if I know you, you've come in before, and you feel like you've blown an audition before, or you've nailed it, or whatever, none of that matters to me. When you walk into the room, I'm sort of only looking at what's in front of me in that moment. Um, and I think I also ask a lot of questions. I like to talk to the actors that come in so I can sort of see how they are, how we would work together if we were a team and I was directing you as a performer. Because to me, it's almost more important. It's equally as important, but almost more so, that we would have a good vibe and a good connection in the room, and we'd enjoy being in that rehearsal room for 5 hours a day or 6 hours a day for 4 to 5 weeks or however long the contract is. Because to me, if we're not having a good time, and if we're not, enjoying ourselves and feeling privileged that we get to tell stories and we get to do this, then like it's not worth it to me. I don't want drama. Leave that on the stage. So yeah, so I look for people who I think will be great to be in the room and are going to be hard workers and take notes and take direction and are fearless and are friendly and confident. Confidence is a big one. When you're talking about the pure talent, if you walk in with confidence, like, I'm just going to believe you just because you believe you, you know?
Awesome. So, hey, Rita is asking, and maybe I'll preface their question with, does Theatre Raleigh produce new works? And if so, what recommendations do you have for emerging playwrights who would like to have their work produced?
Send me a script. No, yes, we do new plays. And we will be doing more so now than we have been able to. And I'll say, the reason I started Theatre Raleigh, so to sort of go back to what I said about my brother who was running it before, Hot Summer Nights, I ended up taking it over after 3 years because my brother Michael and my dad had other careers and they were doing other things, and it just became too much for them. And I was really interested in new works. And I was like, I had already promised a friend that I would do his new show down there and I would direct it. And I didn't want to let him down. And so I said to my brother and my dad, I was like, I'll do it. I'll take over Hot Summer Nights. So I ultimately took it over that next summer. And the intention was to sort of create new theater and add to the canon of, not only plays but musicals as well. But what I found out pretty fast was that you have to earn trust with your patrons, and that you can't come swinging in and being like, here are all these new crazy plays that I think you're going to love. I had to sort of slowly baby step towards that. And I feel like now I've built the audience that will trust what I deliver to them. So we get a lot of subscriptions for the size of theater we are, that most of my patrons say, I may not love musicals, but I know you're going to do really good ones and they'll be high quality and will come, or I don't know this title at all, but I think it's going to be good and maybe I'll learn something. So they're trusting me now. And so that's exciting because that means I can start doing more.
Yeah.
This coming year, we're going to do a new play by Mike Wiley and Howard L. Kraft, called Piece of Clay, which I'm really, really excited about. And so that's something we commissioned. We're working with them as writers on it, and we are going to put it on our main stage in 2021. So that is cool. I plan in our new venue, which maybe we can talk about later too. We will be doing more and more and more of creation of new theater. So if you're a playwright, send me a script.
Well, Rita, if that's you asking for yourself, make sure you send Lauren some stuff to read. Lauren, Lydia, excuse me, Linda. Hi, Linda. Linda, have you ever had to replace an actor once rehearsals have begun?
No, I have not. As a matter of fact, I probably would not do that. I thank God I've never been in this situation. The only reason I would replace an actor if there was bad behavior or mistreatment of others, but I would not replace an actor because they weren't living up to my expectations. If anything, I would think I have to work harder to get the performance out of them that I thought I was going to get. So it's on me, not on them. So it's on me. Um, I've seen it happen. I've been part of shows where people were replaced, and it's bad for morale. It's not awesome, especially if it's just because the person wasn't as good as the producers had hoped. I'm you're not going to see me do that unless it's kind of negative vibes.
All right, so you started working with Hot Summer Nights here, and that was just during the summer.
Hmm.
So talk to us about essentially starting a full-fledged theater company from the ground up. What was that process like?
Oh, it's crazy. Except it also seemed natural in the moment. I was like, we were doing the summer series, and that was sort of our ace in our back pocket. But I felt more and more like I wanted to um, dive deeper in. So to give you context, I was still living in New York when I took over Hot Summer Nights, so I would only come down in the summers, and I did that for about 5 years. Where I'd come down in early May or end of April, and then go back in September. And what I found was people would sort of forget about us during the year, and then we'd have to remind everybody come April, like, "Hey, remember us? We're going to do these shows." And it took a second to like gear it back up. So the idea was, if we continue to do year-round programming, it helps keep us in people's minds. It helps keep the staff sort of juices flowing, and everybody's just in their vibe all the time. And I also was more and more moving away from wanting to be a performer, and I was much more nourished by producing than I was acting. So it just kind of simultaneously happened.
Okay, and so that first season of Theater Raleigh,
Hmm.
official season, you went from how many shows in Hot Summers to how many shows in Theater Raleigh?
um, well, we went from like the first season I did, we had to do 4 shows, and then like last year we did 8 shows in the year, including education shows, camp, and then a 5 show series in the summer. So
Gotcha. And so, COVID aside,
yeah.
do you feel has been the biggest change to the company from its creation to back in March?
Well, the the biggest one has been that we started off as a for profit, and now we're a nonprofit as of 2014. So for the past 6 years, we've been a nonprofit. And that was a big change for us. That was a big shift in terms of our ability to fundraise and get community support. Um, I think that the quality of the work we've done has really improved in terms of um, the caliber of performers we're getting and the caliber of creative teams we're hiring. And so I think, to me, that would be the most sort of astounding change. If you looked at what we did in 2009, like pictures of the productions to the pictures of the productions we did last year, you'd be like, oh, snap, that looks different.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
And I know you're grown up and raised here in Raleigh. Is that the reason you wanted to hunker down here, or did you feel like there was something else that you wanted?
No, 100%. It's because I'm from Raleigh, and I want number one, I love Raleigh. I always loved coming home. Not only because I have family here, obviously, but I just love this city, and I loved seeing what was happening in the city, even like 10, 15 years ago, like the revitalization of downtown, the restaurant scene, um, people moving here because it's a great place to raise your family, or it's a great place to be a single, live in downtown, and great bars and all. Just a lot of fun, sort of energy happening in the area. And I felt like that I could be a part of that arts growth too. Like we could be riding that wave of sort of this wonderful burgeoning of the arts community. And we have. I mean, every theater from community to professional in this area is just growing and getting better and more and the talent pool is so rich and it's just getting better and better. So that was a big part of it too. But at the root of it, I wanted to inspire young artists here the way that I was inspired by Deanne Jones at the North Carolina Theater and Wally Jones and David Wood and the act Terry Mann, for Pete's sake, was the artistic director of North Carolina Theater when I was doing shows in high school. So I was so affected by those people, and they changed my life and made me who I am today, whatever that is. But like, I want to be able to inspire the young artists in this area too.
Thank you. Thank you. So, hey, Gary, David, Bailey, make sure you get those questions in. We don't have much more time with Lauren, so when you can. So let's see here. You guys just had a pretty big move this summer. Yeah. So what's going on? You guys used to be housed in Duke Energy Performing Arts Center for years.
Yeah.
Can you speak a bit about what is it like, operating in that space when your shops and your rehearsal spaces and your offices are off-site? How does it work, and what are you looking forward to most about being in your new space?
Yeah, so you nailing it on the head. It was tricky to have your operations split into two different locations. One where we had our scenic shop, our costume closet. Let's be real, it wasn't very full fledged. Our rehearsal studio out in North Raleigh, and then our productions were primarily at the Kennedy Theater in the Duke Energy Center for the Performing Arts. And I loved being there again because I grew up in that building. Like I used to run around doing theater camps when I was 7 to 16, you know, in that building. It smells the same. It's so weird. Like you'd walk down those hallways and I'm like, this is just gives me all kinds of memories. And I loved that feeling. I loved the full circleness of that. But in the end, it became too expensive for us to really be able to produce there. It's very expensive to be in that space. Um, uh, there was a lot of requirements in terms of security and production management and the crews that we had to hire there. And I understand that they have to do what they have to do, but for a small theater company like ours, we just couldn't make the numbers work. We never really could. We were just squeaking by. And so I've been thinking about this move for a really long time. I've been thinking, like, wouldn't it be great to be in one space where the shop was right next door, and all we had to do was move the set over through some double doors, and then it's into the theater, as opposed to having to load it in a truck that we rent, and all these other added costs that people don't really think about. Um, and then truck it all the way downtown and then break it down and then truck it back out, so it was a lot of logistics that we had to deal with. And wouldn't that be great? And wouldn't it be great if we had rehearsal space right in there, so if you weren't performing you could be rehearsing at the same time and we could all be in the same space. So that was certainly the dream, and it has been for years, but it just didn't seem like it was viable because downtown is also, the real estate so expensive, and I just didn't know how we were going to make that happen. But we did find this space in North Raleigh, which I'm paying rent on. It's low rent, thank goodness, and we are doing a lot of the work ourselves. We are using COVID-19 forced downtime to sort of roll up our sleeves and do the work ourselves. So we did a lot of aesthetic changes in there, and we have a lot more work to do. But that work will take sort of more fundraising efforts, because we're going to take a big pre-existing sort of 10,000 square foot open space, which used to be a church sanctuary, and split it into smaller performance venues and a rehearsal space and a scenic shop and a costume shop and dressing rooms and all that kind of stuff. So it's just walls and floor, and stuff like that. But it's definitely going to take a little bit more money than we can handle right now. So we're going to do some fundraising initiatives in the next year, and try to outfit it. But even now, the way it is, we'll do our theater magic and try to produce some shows in there in the meantime, and get people used to this new exciting venue, because we also have the ability to grow. So I can do more camps or classes, or I can sell concessions. We can get our beer and wine license, and we can sell food, and we can sell concessions, beer, wine, water, cokes, products, whatever. And it's coming to us. It's another revenue stream instead of it going to the city of Raleigh or whatever, because we never got any of that.
Mhm.
So it helps sort of create a business model that's more sustainable. And another big part of what we're doing with this new space is we're going to also offer it to other companies who want to perform or rehearse. And the idea is that the rent would be at a very fair, low rate. So it's affordable for new and up and coming companies to utilize the space. And then the idea is so exciting to me to have like a arts incubator. Everybody's there together buzzing and the creative energy just feeds off of each other.
Awesome. Okay.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, and everyone check out their Facebook page for Theater Raleigh. There was a great video that Lauren just did that kind of showcases that move and the work that you guys are doing. It looks really great. It really
It's
does.
exciting.
We have an anonymous attendee asking a question. When do you project for live performances to start up again, even if it's on a small scale?
Oh gosh. Well, we are doing a show on November 7th. We are going to do a concert called Leading Ladies. And again, like I said, we have that 10,000 square foot space. So we're going to be able to socially distance the 25 people that we have sold tickets to. Right now, theater has to follow the gathering size. So it's not like movie theaters where you can do 30%. We can only have 25 people in there unless you ask for special dispensation, which honestly, we didn't do. I chose not to right now because I want to baby step back into live performances. I feel like a lot of our patrons are still uneasy with coming into groups and sitting next to people for an extended period of time. So we're gonna take it one step at a time. But we are gonna do some live theater concert type stuff November and December and one in February. But in terms of producing a play where you'd have to have more moving parts with actors backstage, longer rehearsal processes, that's the part that is still a question mark to me because you can do Zoom rehearsals but it's not quite the same. We've done them for this concert and we've had very limited in-person time. But for a play or a musical on a bigger scale, it's going to be harder. So the other element to sort of mention in that is that we also hire equity actors. So the Actors Equity Association is the union that you join when you're a professional actor and you want to work on Broadway and national tours. And so we hire probably between 3 and 6 equity actors for our shows depending on the size. And right now, they're not giving equity contracts. So I don't really know when they're going to do that, when that's going to happen. We've submitted COVID plans and we've been talking about like how we would make it safe for actors. But we haven't gotten an answer of like, yes, you can do these shows yet. So, my backup plan, I'm sure like everybody and you too, Josh, you're probably doing the same thing. There's like an A plan, a B plan, and a C plan. And, I'm determined to do live theater, so I know we will be doing something in the spring and summer. It may be outside, it may be non-jurisdictional. We may continue to do concerts where we're not hiring equity actors. I don't really know. We may do live streaming. It still remains to be seen. Right now, we're planning to start our season in late April, and I'm really crossing my fingers that we can do that. Whether it be inside our new venue or outside on a stage, we pop up under a tent. I don't know. I'm committed to delivering something to my patrons, though.
Awesome. And if you want to, everyone, I'm going to put the Theater Raleigh website in the chat. Make sure you check out what they are doing. And Lauren, can you talk to us about what you have been doing since March? You've got a handful of different programs going on.
We do. We've turned into like a TV company. As everybody has pivoted, pivot being the big word that everybody uses now, we have pivoted our efforts to doing virtual performances. It kind of just struck us right away that we should do that. And luckily, my husband has been like, I don't doing the deep dive into videography. And so we were like, we should do living room concerts, or, we can do these streaming concerts where, we have friends who are in New York can be in their living room and they can sing and we can broadcast it to our people. Um, and of course, again, like if you looked at what we were doing at the end of March to what we're doing now, we've come quite a long way. So we do a show, a weekly show called Living Room Live, which is sort of like the Tonight Show meets concert. And so I do a little interview with the guest, and then we have a performance element to it as well, where we either have the guest is going to sing or we have a performer come. And it's been great because we've been able to showcase a lot of local talent here, and give people some opportunity. Yeah, there I am with David Wood. And we chit chat, we talk, tell stories, and then we have a performer sing 4 or 5 songs in front of the piano. And we have had a really good time. So yeah, we have microphones, we have sound, we have lights. It's come quite a long way, and we have a 3 camera shoot going on. So it's been really fun.
This is your living room, yeah?
Yeah, it's my living room. Yeah. But the good news is that last Monday, or this past Monday, we did our final living room live in my actual living room. We're gonna move it to our new space where we're creating a set that we can just, every Monday night we go and we shoot it there. So I don't have to like upend my house every week. And when we first started it, my husband like kind of left the cameras around and lights up. I finally said, we have to break this down. We have to break it down. We need to bring the couch back in here.
So much more than what I'm doing. I mean, I take over my wife's office, which has our group office, but yeah, the ring light goes away and everything, and it does feel like, we're upending our lives throughout
Yeah,
the.
it's been really crazy. You think, oh well, what else are we doing? We'll just create a TV show. And then I was like, what else are we doing? We'll start building this new venue. We'll just go for it. Because COVID really was the thing that pushed me to make that bold move and just be like, we can't make it financially work downtown anymore. Let's make this move. And while we're not doing any shows, we canceled our entire 2020 season. Let's do the work ourselves. Why not? And so we have really filled our time. I have been quite busy.
It is funny. I feel the same way. I feel like sometimes I'm more busy than I was before.
I
uh,
know. It's crazy.
Here. So everyone, we got about a little around 10 minutes left. So make sure you ask this question before before we're out of time. Lauren, where do you see the industry going? How do you think theater will look post-COVID?
I think it'll be different for a long time. I mean, and it's obviously going to come back. It's been around since, the Greeks, it's part of like who we are as a human, sort of animal. We want to tell stories and we want to gather together and we want to have a shared experience. So I am not worried. I know it's going to come back, but I do worry that it's going to take a second. But the one thing that I'm always chasing rainbows, like the one thing that maybe it'll do, it'll sort of like even out how we've done it. So maybe it'll be more affordable on the other side. Maybe it'll be more common that people look for live performances, and it's not so, oh, let's get dressed up and go on a Saturday night and spend $100 and go see a show. Maybe it'll be a little bit more accessible to people. Like that's what I'm hoping. I'm hoping it's that as opposed to the other extreme. Because I think people are going to really want to gather again and have a shared experience. I really really do think so. But I think COVID's going to be with us for a while. Like it's who knows about vaccine, who knows about how it will, how long that's going to take for it even to be distributed. And I just feel like the better we can sort of forge those new paths of what it looks like and get back to doing theater, the more likely it is that it will get back to normal soon.
New normal, yeah.
The new normal, yeah.
Heard the saying, we're not going back, we're going forward to a normal.
That is very true. I think, yeah, there is no going back necessarily, but yeah, forward and maybe better, like maybe better in ways. I'm excited about what the future holds for sure. And I just can't wait to like, be in rooms with people, being creative. That's going to be very exciting to me, because one thing that I will say, I'm kind of going to go off on a tangent. I'm sorry, but when I took over TheatreRaleigh and started producing, there were times where I missed being like a kid, just a kid in a show, just showing up and saying my lines and singing my songs and not having to worry about like the rest of it. I remember when I was doing Spam-A-Lot on Broadway. I'm not trying to name drop maybe a little bit. But I also worked with Hank Azaria, who, everybody knows him from all his TV creds. And he was on my dressing room was right next to his, and he was producing a TV show at the time. And he just said, there's nothing more than I love coming to this theater and just putting on my makeup and my costumes and getting to play act with my friends and be silly and not have to worry about making any of the tough decisions. And at that point, I hadn't really started doing any of the things that I had done yet as a producer. I was just like, oh, that's so interesting. I don't even really know what he's talking about. But now that I'm on the other side, I do totally get that. When I did Mamma Mia last year at NCT, I just was like, oh, I just have to like stand up here and sing. Like that's y'all's problem. Like, are the lights working? I don't know. Is it like, is it going to be a good show? You guys, that's on you. All I have to do is just stand here in my like, spandex and hang out with my friends. So it is interesting that that has been sort of something that I've craved a little bit in these last few years. It's just sort of like an abandon. So I look forward to that abandon again for not only for myself but everybody else when we're able to get in the studios and in the theaters again.
Just to play. Yeah, I agree. Rita's asking, earlier you mentioned learning directing through osmosis.
Yeah.
What else would you say that you have learned through osmosis?
Oh my God. Everything.
Mhm.
More specifically, though, Rita, I will tell you that I have learned how to be a business person, how to um, do spreadsheets, how to, run a production meeting or run a staff meeting. It's really just been something that, like, you watch people do. You're like, okay, I'll give it a shot. I'll try. I hope I heard that right and learned it right. And you make some mistakes and then you just keep powering through. So yeah, I've learned a lot through watching other people, amazing people who produce, like people like Michelle Weathers, who is the executive director of the ballet. She was my managing director for a while, and just watching what she did and emulating what she did was pretty much why I'm able to produce, because I understand through her it's almost like playing a role. I almost am like, okay, what would Michelle do? And then I do that, and it's like, okay, that worked out pretty good. So yeah, that osmosis and Googling things.
Good
That's how I've learned.
friend. Oh my gosh. I mean, it's
Google is everything.
this last like 7 months, it's like I've learned how to do things. I Google, tell me how to do this.
I mean, you can literally type in anything and be like, how do I change the color of a logo on Illustrator? And then like 1,000 videos come up and you're like, oh snap, that's cool. Now I know.
Or like we just said, I wonder why the sky's blue. Oh well. And
I
then
know.
that was it. You just didn't care. You just didn't.
What did we do? What did we do?
So, Rita, to jump onto your question a bit more, as you know, NC State is a STEM campus. We have a lot of students who are taking all sorts of classes and getting all sorts of experiences. What one thing do you feel has best prepared you for your role as producer? What skill? What did you see Michelle do that you're like, I have to hold on to that?
Yeah. What would be That's a very good question with a ton of answers actually. Um, I just kind of feel like that I want to learn is what makes me a halfway decent producer, or being able to fool everybody that I know what I'm doing, is I really want to learn. Like I want to know how. I have a thirst for knowledge. It's so weird. I never had it when I was in high school. My teachers would tell you I did the bare minimum to get by. But now I just have such an excitement of like, I don't know how to do that. Let me figure it out. And oh my God, I did it. So there's that like sort of euphoric high when you set your mind to learning something and accomplishing and doing it. So I'm kind of like addicted to that a little bit. Um, but I think what set me up for that, to really answer your question, is honestly being an actor and being fearless and being taking chances and being risky. Like that to me is probably one of the best attributes I have to being a producer, is the fact that I'm a little bit fearless. And that is directly from being a performer. directly from being able to stand up on stage and talk to people, to show myself, to be like, this is who I am. And because as an actor, that's what you do, is you say, this is my heart, and this is how I see this character. And so as a producer and somebody who's leading a company, you're constantly being like, this is who I am, this is how I feel about things, this is how I want to lead, this is how I want to impact the community. And you're showing and revealing yourself constantly. um, and that has been helpful for me, because I have a lot of bravery in that for some reason.
So, hey, we're always telling people, don't, always keep learning. You can always learn. So
Yeah,
good.
exactly. And there's who says you fail anyway? And failures are stair steps to triumphs. And I can't tell you how many times I've failed, even as a producer, how many times I've made bad decisions, or any time I picked the wrong show or whatever. I mean, I don't really believe in those mistakes, but like, you're like, oh, I learned from that. I learned from that. I learned from that. I learned from that. And as an actor, I have fallen on my face so many times. I have blown really important auditions. I have blown like really important meetings where like something incredible could have happened for me and I just blew it. And I have fallen on my face, literally and metaphorically, on stage. My opening night of Sunset Boulevard on Broadway, I literally did a high kick and fell on my face. And that was opening night and I was mortified. But like that kind of stuff happens and it doesn't really define you. Only if you let it. You kind of like lick your wounds and move forward. But it happens to everybody. Everybody falls and everybody fails. And if you don't let it define you, then you have a leg up.
Awesome. And that might have answered my question, but I'm going to go ahead and ask it.
Okay.
We're right here towards the end of the night. We ask the same question for every guest. And this is going to be a two-part because you kind of, focus on performance and as a producer. So
Yeah.
if you had one piece of advice for a young person wanting to become an actor, what would it be? Same question.
Okay. For a producer, so actor and producer. As an actor, I would say my advice is to say yes to opportunities. Don't ever think that you're too good or too, whatever for an opportunity. Uh, Take them and utilize them and learn from them. The worst thing you can do as an actor is be like, no, I don't know. I'm not going to take that because it's going to take me out of town. Or no, I'm not going to take that job because I won't be able to audition for all the TV and film stuff that's coming up. Do the jobs, because you never know who you're going to meet. You never know who you're going to work with. And the relationships are everything in this business. And so meet people, be in the room with people, work with them when we can, but just do that. Create relationships and loyal, trusting bonds with people, because, not that you're trying to be manipulative, but you never know. You never know who's going to write the next whatever, August Osage County. You never know who's going to be the rehearsal pianist who's going to ultimately write Dear Evan Hansen one day. I mean, and that's real. Those are real stories. Like I worked with Justin Paul, who wrote Dear Evan Hansen. He was an accompanist for me. Same thing with a guy named Matt Sklar, rehearsal pianist, wrote, Elf and The Wedding Singer and all these, you just don't know. And so say yes to opportunities and be nice to people. Just be nice. You're not a better actor if you're mean or complex or misguided. You're a good actor if you're brave, and you're a better actor if you're kind.
Yeah, it's such a small world. Everybody on this series has said nothing. If they said nothing else, it's a small world and everyone knows everyone.
Yeah, it's true. So be nice. So as a producer, what would I say to aspiring producers? Uh, Learn how to do spreadsheets, and you know, love the process. Like, remember why you do it. Remember that you are in charge and you are creating these projects because you love it and you love the people who work on it. So never lose track of loving the directors and loving the actors, loving the creative team, and respecting what they bring to the table. Because if they are not there, then you are not there.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Lauren. We're going to go ahead and we're going to call it a night.
Wrap it up.
Few more minutes earlier tonight. So thank you all for coming out to see Lauren. Lauren, thank you for coming out to see everyone. And
I've had a blast.
Lauren, thank you again.
My pleasure.
All right. Take care.
Thank you so much, Josh. Thank you. Bye, guys. Thank you for tuning in.